I never hide that I am polygamous, with an appetite for black Japanese chicks. Unlike monogamous cheaters, I accept all the responsibilities and inconveniences as well as I enjoy the pleasure that comes with it. Time is a luxury I no longer have, so no more patience for teenager tantrums. I want my Japanese hold. When these ladies argue which one I love the most, I tell them that each of them has a quality that another one does not. If they insist, I leave them, then come back with a new chick. Last month, I had to bring home Mademoiselle 20. First thing first, I like the lens, but I don't recommend it. The fact that this model is rarely mentioned should be an indication of his stature. And this is not due to his rarity as some might claim. Instead, it's because of his specification and price, given the availability of better and faster budget option. Being labeled a collector item cannot justify $250, $300 for one 50-year-old lens with one maximum aperture of 4.5 and only 5 aperture blade. And of course, his lack of character that does not align with today's filmmaking trends. That said, delivering character has never been the purpose of ultra-wide angle. The reputation of the SMC coating is beyond question, one of the best ever made. However, a wide-angle lens remains prone to flare. The 20mm exhibits two distinctive types on flare. It's either one type or the other. There is no diplomacy in between. Wide open, the flare can produce something okay, acceptable circular and oval artifacts, and the glare doesn't wash out the picture. This can be quite interesting for a dramatic effect. It would have been more artistic if the flare was not monochrome. Then there is the second type once you stop down the aperture, which I'm not fond of. Unsurprisingly, the 5-blade aperture produces sun star, but the hard edges hexagons, they are not delicate. Their presence is a bit too much, kind of visual noise. This is a matter of personal preferences, it's just not mine. Outdoor with an ND filter, same result, just with more hexagonal artifact, and sometimes a weird big circle appears. It could have been interesting if he had colored that line. Anyway, long story short. Finally a Takumar with some flair, just not the kind I'm looking for. A lens hood is a must, of course. Pride is the brother of beauty. They often come together, and my ladies are not spared from arrogance, always reminding me of the success they had in their prime. Mademoiselle 20 Asahi said that in 1968, like Cleopatra, she had masses of photographers at her feet by being the first of her kind.
The first rectilinear wide angle with a diagonal field of view of 94 degrees. I was an optical marvel for landscape and
architectural photography, she said. I can be cruel, but I remain first a gentilhomme. So I kept the truth to myself, which is this. Despite being refreshed in 1971 with the SMC coating, professionals kept criticizing a barrel distortion, vignetting, chromatic aberration, the softness in the corner, and to top it off, a lack of sharpness, a flaw considered blasphemous for a Takumar. At the end of her production in 1975, the SMC Takumar 20mm was already outdated by faster competitors. Some people describe this lens having a filmic look. That term has become so ambiguous that sometimes I can't even tell what it means anymore. But let's cut the chit-chat and go to the point. There are two characteristics I suspect many of you won't appreciate, the sharpness and the flares. These aren't problematic, there are some workarounds, but still can be a problem depending on your taste. As they said in the 70s, this lens is abnormally lacking some sharpness for a Takumar. f4.5 is soft. f8, considered the best aperture, does the job but not by much. At f11 and f16 there is no dramatic improvement over f8, even with the camera sharpness set to default. This lack of details works well for smoothing the skin in portraits and might be acceptable for viewing on medium and mobile screen, but large display, not so sure. Nonetheless, the lens still can produce the legendary Takumar sharpness. For example, take this shot. Look at how much detail is captured, a bit too much for my taste. And here lies the secret of the Takumar 20mm f4.5. This ultra-wide angle can double as a macro lens. And allow me to risk my modest reputation by saying this wide angle should be used as a close focusing lens, not the other way around. Of course, for photography, an ultra-wide that is sharp at minimum focusing distance does not make much sense, but for filming, it's perfect for wide-angle close shot. With regards to the colors, they feel a bit desaturated compared to the other SMC Takumars. They are more on the cold side, but many of you dial down the saturation in camera anyway, so let's not complain about it. Also, the lens is rectilinear, at least on paper. In the field, this still exhibits a barrel distortion, but that's good to add some character. Chromatic aberration, they are present, but not to an extreme level, and not even close to the Russian lenses. But unlike Cleopatra, I have no doubt about the beauty of Mademoiselle 20, just like any other sharing the same assay lineage. A dark metallic skin and silhouette is a satisfaction for the eyes, and her curves a pleasure for the hand. A bit small, but hefty. She still have a few minor flaws that I dislike, but I won't tell her. Like a very short 90° of focus throw, which make precise manual focusing challenging. And finally, her 5 aperture blades, which are not so much an handicap for the bokeh, mostly for the flare. Bokeh. Bokeh is not usually part of the vocabulary of ultra-wide lenses. They are not made for that, especially at 4.5. This is a shame, considering that at its minimum focusing distance, the 20mm can produce pleasant, round bubble bokeh, as well as some hexagonal shapes when the aperture is topped down, as you've seen in this shot. Unfortunately, this effect is completely lost beyond the 50cm focusing mark. But if I may offer a suggestion, without pretending to be an expert on the bokeh, I would say that with this lens, this is the other way around. You should not try to achieve a pleasant out of focus background. No, this is the foreground instead. This is just my 2 cents. Focus. As expected from a photography lens, the focus briefing is noticeable, of course, creating a slight in and out effect during tracking, kind of zooming. However, it does not distort the image. I did not observe any significant image shift, everything remained stable, but I do recall, however, noticing a drop in the camera light meter when focusing toward infinity. Mademoiselle 20 knew that I wasn't impressed how she rendered the outdoor shots. I told her to not mind about it. She tried to hide her disappointment, but I know my ladies better than they know themselves. Past criticism are now her quality. She was not made for photography, but to film this wise, promiscuous shot, near a minimum focusing distance. This is where her beauty is and has always been. And I told her that she will always be my first choice for this wide close shot that I am particularly fan of. Non. YouTube, c'est fini. On s'arrête là. Thank you.